Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I'm Maria Casillas, joined by my incredible co-host, Cody Sizemore. We are excited to talk to you today about the ebbs and flows of our business. And as always, Cody has been so gracious to actually bring some real numbers to the table for us and kind of let us have a behind-the-scenes peek at what's been going on in his business. And we're just going to unpack that a little bit today. Before we do that, though, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you who has tuned in today, and especially those of you who tune in regularly. We very much appreciate you. We are here for you, and we look forward to continuing to provide valuable content to you over the following weeks and months ahead. All right, Cody, how are you today?
Doing great. I did my taxes the other day.
Me too.
And I got really good news, which I was going into it kind of nervous. But I got really good news. So I'm feeling great.
Do you want to share your good news, or is it?
I mean, sure. So, I do quarterly estimates, and I set aside, a certain amount every time I get paid and stuff like that.
Yep.
And as I sent in my last quarterly estimate, it basically drained my tax account for 2024 to zero. I think there's like 74 cents left in there. So as I was going to file the year end,
you prayed hard.
I was like, I really hope that I don't have to owe any more. But then
no more than 75 cents.
Yeah. And I was like, do I have to adjust how much I'm saving for taxes? Like all those kinds of stuff. And then did the year end stuff and found out that we actually overestimated, and we're getting back like $6,800, which was just like when he said that number, my eyebrows went up to the point where my wife kind of snickered about it.
Because you're looking like that's a down payment on another house.
Yeah. So.
That's really exciting. I'm really glad to hear that. I am curious, and this is not what we're talking about today, but in case any of our business owners are curious about this, what percentage did you set aside?
15.
I was thinking that might be the case. And a lot of times people think there's no way 15% is enough. And, you know, especially if they're in a higher tax bracket. And what you don't realize is that you're looking at 15% of your gross income, and you still have all of the deductions and stuff to consider. And so that obviously is a pretty decent estimate. Not only did you make it, you actually overshot your mark. So.
Yeah, and that's something that comes up. I know we're talking about something different, but just real quick, that's something that comes up even with working with clients who are 1099 or the self-employed, or they have their own business. I'll kind of it depends on the type of business, but generally speaking, I'm like, you probably don't need to save 25% like you think you do. You probably would be fine with 15. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, because after all of this stuff, it usually works out pretty well. So, yeah.
Yep. And my situation is a little different because I'm not the primary breadwinner in our family. So I actually just I save myself the hassle of doing the quarterly because my husband has a W-2 job, and he just takes out a little bit more because the way that our LLC and his job, it all goes together. And so as long as we are able to show that we've deducted enough over the year for both of us, it makes it easy. So but even though we do that, I still set aside some money each year for the taxes as well through my business. And I was thrilled to be able to then at the end of this year, take that money and go do something else with it because we didn't need it for that. So anyway, all right. So we had zero intention to talk about taxes today, but I'm thrilled. And by the way, I got my refund within a week, both of them, state and fed. So hopefully yours comes very quickly for you. And you're able to go spend that money quickly. Okay, so let's actually get back onto what we wanted to talk about today, but it is kind of related. You're setting up your finances through your business, and you have a certain way to do things. And because of that, I know you're very, very particular about your numbers and how you track what things happen. And because you're so driven, you love to see what are you doing this year as compared to last year and the year before, et cetera, and how do you forecast the future years? And so you have a lot of data that you can use. And I would like to take you up on your offer to open those books a little bit for our audience and just kind of show them that peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. So, you open up this episode talking about the ebbs and flows. And that's what I kind of want to focus on, because right around the Christmas and New Year's time, I did something this past year that I've always done this, but not on the scale that I did this past year, which is like, I took some time off, right? And for those who are every weekers, you've listened to past episodes where I've talked about, taking some of like the weight off of me, or taking a little bit of a step back for the sake of like my family and stuff like that. So, I kind of took that same mindset, and it went into the holiday season, and basically went into that kind of practice. So in years prior, I would have probably only taken like the 23rd of December through the 26th of December off, and then half of New Year's Eve and the full day of New Year's Day. So really like 4.5 days I would usually take off.
Slacker.
Yeah. And, this year I basically took off almost a complete full 2 weeks. I think it was 12 days where I just completely went dark kind of thing. And it felt really good. I definitely needed it. I was able to, spend time with the family and kind of turn my brain off and all that good stuff. So I'm happy that I did it. However, one thing that you should know, which Maria, I'm sure that you know, but you as listeners should also know this too, is that the work that you do today for your business usually doesn't come to fruition until like 4 to 8 weeks later, kind of thing, right? So that also is true for the lack of work that you do today, also then comes into fruition 4 to 8 weeks later. Yes. And because I took those two weeks off, the month of January for me was really tough in the sense of like, having income come in and getting new clients created and stuff like that. The first, I would say like 24 days of January, I don't think that I onboarded one new client. In fact, I think it was maybe one. I got one new client in that period of time, which, for me is very low. Usually for me, it's like 1 to 2 a week kind of thing. So to have one in 3.5 weeks is a big difference. And my first paycheck that I cut myself for the month of January was a whopping $74.
Wow.
$74.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, my mortgage is $27.50.
And you had 74 cents in your tax bank.
Right. And I'm the main breadwinner in the family. So like, you have a mortgage that's $27.50 and your first paycheck for the month is $74. You're kind of
your heart sank.
Yeah, you're kind of like, holy cow, did I make a mistake by doing this kind of thing? So during that period of time, like you mentioned, I'm very numbers oriented, and I like to at least match what I did before, if not exceed it. Especially with this new kind of like offboarding kind of season that I've entered into, I'm okay with matching now. And if I were to exceed, that's just bonus points. But I was looking at my Stripe account, and at the height of that, we'll call it the dip, or I guess the flow, or no, I'm sorry, the ebb rather. My Stripe account told me that as compared to last year, I was behind by 300%.
Oh.
And you know me, Maria. How did I react to that?
You didn't like it.
Did not like that.
Nope. You said, now I need to get ahead by 500%.
Yeah. So as a result of seeing that, and also having that first paycheck be $74, I was like, I need to go hard right now. And that's exactly what I did. So, for those first like 3 or 4 weeks of January, especially, I was just doing so much with prospecting. I was reaching out to people. I was calling people. I was sending emails. I was doing freebies. I was doing all these different types of things just to get conversation started and then get people on the phone and all this kinds of stuff. And my calendar filled up very quickly, very, very quickly. And there was probably like a 2.5 week kind of process or period of time to where I was working a lot. Now I still have my family nights. Never sacrificed those. But the other days that I didn't have those family nights, I was in the office a lot, kind of thing. And as a result of that, I was able to make progress. And I was able to get some new clients, so much so that I went from negative 300% all the way up to positive 10% as compared to last year at one point. Now, as things currently stand, I'm at like negative 24% right now, but take that with a grain of salt. That basically is like, hey, you made 2 more clients at this day last year as you did compared to this year. And that could be solved literally tomorrow if I close my 2 sales, my 2 sales calls, my 2 consultations, if you want to call that. So I've essentially caught up, kind of thing. So I can speak more on this, but I've been speaking a lot, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time.
No, I think it's really great. I was just kind of curious. 2 things. One, you made a very intentional decision to take some time off.
Yeah.
And as you were talking, even when you got a $74 check and even when your consultations were nil, you said, I don't regret the decision that I made in order to take that break. And so I just want to point that out because I think sometimes we second guess ourselves. Like we know we need this, our family needs this, our soul needs this. And so we take it. And then when the numbers don't add up, usually 4-6 weeks later, we start to go back and regret that decision. And I think that that's something to just be wary of. If you know that this is something that you want and can plan for, then don't turn back and regret that because that's not a good idea. Okay. So that's one thing. But the other thing was, I was curious, how often does it feel like it's feast or famine for you? Because I know that there's a lot of business owners who feel that way and or they just fear that that's how they will feel. And so that keeps them from starting maybe even starting up a business at all, or starting and then just not even continuing because of that sense of I'm either going to have to go super duper hard or I can take this break and my income is going to be feast or famine. What do you say to that?
So I think that there's 2 different parts to that. How often is it actually feast or famine? And then how often do I feel the fear of that?
Great distinction.
Yes. So I'll start with the latter, which is how often do you feel the fear of that? Always. Always. Because this type of business, it is a revolving door kind of thing. Like, you're going to onboard new clients and you could onboard a new client one day and then the next day wrap up your initial coaching session term with 2 clients kind of thing, so it's always like a revolving door. And that's why, I started things like the Money Momentum group and continued coaching to kind of help aid with that. And that's been going well, but there's no guarantees with anything, Sure. The only guarantee that you have is what you do today kind of thing. So because of that pressure and that fear is always there. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, at least for me, because that's the thing that really keeps me going. It keeps that drive moving forward. So that's that side of things.
Okay, so I would like to just say, and we've talked about this before, so if you're an every weeker, you can either fast forward 10 seconds or just listen to it again. But that whole idea of, you said that's a good idea for you. It makes you motivated. It keeps you going. And you and I have talked about how
for me.
For you, exactly. We've talked about how that's a very specific personality and that there are many people who are in financial coaching who are more of that, mindset of always plan ahead and make sure you have all, the money set aside and all that. And so something like that would be very difficult for them. So someone in that, more of that personality, they might do really well with, say, take that $6,000 that you just got from your tax refund and put that aside as an income bank, so that when you have $74 months, you're able, or weeks, I guess in that case, you're able to then draw from that. So there are ways or creative ways to make sure, sorry, there's a plane going over.
I hear it this time.
Yeah, oh, you know what? Oh, never mind. I was gonna say we can pause now, but I don't think we can. I don't know why it doesn't say that on there anymore. we can plan for some of that stuff. And I think we've talked about that before. So I just want to let other people know there is a possibility of doing that. So you don't feel like you're always, feast or famine, that when you have really, really great months, if you don't need to spend all of that particular paycheck that month, then you can kind of put that aside and make it a little bit more consistent for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all about how you operate best.
That's right.
And that's a personal choice that I've made, so I do have a little bit of like a income bank or an emergency fund, if you want to call it, for the business. I do have that. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't put too much into that. I put enough into there to be like, if something crazy happens, I can rely on this, but I don't want to be too comfortable to feel like I can always rely on it, kind of thing.
Right. Because then you take breaks that are not intentional breaks.
Right. Exactly. So that's that side of things. Now, the other side of things of how often does it actually happen to where it's feast or famine, I would say probably 2 or 3 times a year. And that's really it. And it's usually at the very beginning of the year, like we kind of just discussed. It is also usually right after tax season, because people get their tax returns and they're like, I'm good. I've got all this money and blah, blah, blah. I don't need help. Right. So that's when I typically see a little bit of a dip, usually the months of like April and May. And then those are really the 2 consistent ones. And usually after that, it might just be like a random kind of month, for no really rhyme or reason. Maybe just some of the things that I was doing just weren't resonating with people at that time. Maybe I wasn't doing what I really needed to, whatever it might be. But the answer is that it's very limited in that kind of sense, to where I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm not really doing very well here, But that does happen from time to time.
Sure.
Yeah. So my big thing, one reason as to why I wanted to talk about this is for 2 reasons. One is to just recognize that, like, hey, this does happen to us as coaches, right? And even someone who has a multi-6-figure coaching business, such as myself, that still happens for someone who's making that kind of revenue. So if that's happening to you, you shouldn't look at that and be like, well, what am I doing wrong? Is this even possible? Can I even do it? It's normal, so just keep pushing. That was one reason why I wanted to bring it up. But also the second one is like, just because we go through these periods of time, all this is this is not something that's happening to you. It's something that happens for you. Because every time that you go through an ebb in your practice, you should look back at that and you should be like, what caused that? And what could I have done differently to either avoid that ebb or maybe lessen the blow from that ebb moving forward? So this is a learning experience to kind of show you like, hey, like this is what you can do moving forward, whether it be, being more consistent with something, whether it be putting your energy into the things that are actually going to bring you results versus not bring you results, whatever it might be. But this can be a learning experience to turn this from something that happens to you to instead something that happens for you moving forward. And I think that's really important, because if you get that out of it and you look at it with that perspective, you can easily turn these ebbs into flows consistently.
I think that is true. And I think that in order to make it true for each person who's listening, having some sort of tracking is going to be important, because if you don't, then it's going to be hard to know what did work, what what measurement, I don't.
You're struggling over here, Maria.
Such a brain fight. It's so funny because it's just like one stupid word. What metrics? Oh my gosh. If we can track those metrics, then we're going to know what behaviors did we do that would actually work and give us the results we want and what ones didn't. And then it will also allow you to be more intentional with that, which is kind of getting back to the beginning of this, which I think is just so important, because we can and we should take intentional time for ourselves and then get back into making intentional decisions in terms of working for ourselves, being consistent in those things. And so I just think that if you just kind of throw caution to the wind and like, I'm just going to do something today, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to keep track of any of that, then when it comes down to it and there is an ebb and flow, you don't know like where that came from. And so I just think that that's an important piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, if you made it this far, I want to say thanks for listening. And just a quick reminder, we do have a community that we've been building over the last several years, and it's through Facebook. It's called the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. It's a Facebook group. If you haven't joined that, join it. Ask questions, interact, all that good stuff. It's a really good group of like-minded coaches, and it's growing every week. So that's an awesome thing to see. So make sure you hop in there. And if you're listening to this and you're just getting started with your coaching practice, or you're thinking about getting started with your coaching practice, or you're trying to get that next client, we do have a online course simply called Getting Started as a Financial Coach. And you can find the link to like a free webinar that you can watch to learn more about it. And also get some value as well in the show notes too. So check that out. It's a really cool opportunity, and you can get things started on the right foot, pun intended, with that one. So as always, thank you for listening every single week, especially to you every weekers, as we call you. We really do appreciate you, and we hope to catch you on the next episode next week.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.